Prince Harry is being a rather silly boy in not replying to his father's invitation to the coronation and not RSVPing in time, not only because of security, but also because of precedence. And it doesn't matter who he is, how important he may think he is, how important Meghan Markle may think she is, how important they actually are. No one is more important than the king in this ceremony. And officials, there is a tradition of officials refusing entry to people without a ticket. We only have to go back to 1821, not so far back. 1821, when George IV's coronation took place, and that was 18 months after his father's death. He'd already been Prince Regent since 1811, and his estranged wife, Queen Caroline of Brunswick, had not got an invitation. And she tried at 6 a.m. to enter Westminster Hall. She tried, she received sympathetic applause from the audience of onlookers, but she nevertheless was not allowed into Westminster Abbey. She tried going in through a side door, and she was foiled in that event as well. So she then went back to the front door of Westminster Abbey itself and approached the doorkeeper, and apparently a pile of boxers had been hired to protect the door, thugs. And she said, the man who was with her, who was called Lord Hood, I think, said, "I present to you your queen. Do you refuse her admission?" And the doorkeeper said, "Well, you can't let anybody in without a ticket." And Lord Hood had a ticket, but the doorkeeper told him that only one person could be admitted with that ticket. Caroline refused to take Lord Hood's ticket and enter on her own. She shouted, "The Queen, open!" And the pages opened the door. "I am the Queen of England," she said, and the official roared back to the pages, "Do your duty, shut the door." And the door to Westminster Abbey was slammed in her face. The Queen and her party was then forced to retreat. The nearby crowds apparently said, "Shame, shame." But I mean, you can't get anybody grander than Caroline of Brunswick. She was a queen. Was she a queen? She was. Her father was the Duke of Brunswick. Her mother was Princess Augusta. No, she wasn't a queen. So she was related to She was related to George III's older sister. So she and her husband were first cousins, and she was engaged to George IV before they'd actually met. I don't think that went down terribly well, but it was necessary, I think, because of the dowry that she brought, which was £630,000, a huge amount, and that paid off a lot of Prince Regent's debts. But he was apparently, the Prince Regent was apparently disgusted by her looks and her lack of refinement, and he didn't like her at all. She didn't like him, and also he was already married to Maria Fitzherbert in 1785, and because the marriage had not been approved by his father, the marriage was invalid under English law. And Mrs. Fitzherbert, anyway, was a Catholic, so the marriage would never have been allowed under the law of under the royal law, which prohibited Catholics from marrying the heir to the throne. So the Pope at the time, Pope Pius VII, I think, declared that the marriage was sacramentally valid, and so it's all very complicated. And but it nevertheless demonstrates the point that without a ticket you don't get entrance to the Abbey of Westminster, whether you've got an adoring crowd waiting or not. whether you are the wife of the king, whether you are the son of the king, if you don't have a ticket, you won't gain admittance. So Prince Harry, as I say, is being a silly boy.